right. Okay, special populations. Pregnancy. First off, I want to say that there are some popular conceptions about pregnancy that are completely wrong. And one of these is that pregnancy is always a time of well-being. And it is for some people, okay? But actually rates of depression and bipolar disorder significantly increase during pregnancy, okay, and postpartum. So this is a big deal. Now, if you take a look at the way the FDA handles this, is you do research on animals, okay, to see if it results in any birth defects and that sort of thing. Also, not just birth defects, but also miscarriages or difficulties conceiving and things like that. And then, since you can't do research on humans, it's not ethical to do this, you just wait, and eventually women are going to start taking this stuff, and then physicians encourage women to contact the registry where you can report on how your kid is doing, and most of them don't. A few of them do. So you start developing this database of reports from women who took a drug during pregnancy, and then what the outcomes are in terms of any kind of birth defects, a preterm delivery, miscarriages, later down the road, behavioral problems, and so on and so forth. And the data is actually pretty scant. So there's not a whole lot to hang your hat on, but that's what we have to deal with. Okay. Now, FDA has these 5 ratings, and many of the antipsychotics and antidepressants are rated C. Risk cannot be ruled out. The biggest problem with this is that when you look at, and we'll do this specifically for the different classes of drugs, but I'm just going to mention this in general. If you look at like the rates of preterm, that's a good example, preterm birth in fetuses exposed to treatment with antidepressants, it is slightly higher rates than the general population, and therefore you can say, well, then that's a negative, okay? And that's been assumed for some time. This is typically not life-threatening, but it does stand out as being something different. Until last year, they did a study on women who were depressed who were not taking antidepressants, and they also had the same degree of preterm births as the antidepressant-exposed group. So most of the time, the point that I'm making is that in making these decisions, they look at the outcome data for fetuses that are exposed to the general population. What they should do, they'll say in schizophrenia, is they should look at those who were exposed to antipsychotics whose moms were schizophrenic versus those whose moms were schizophrenic but didn't have the antipsychotic. Especially mood disorders, as we're going to see, offer significant risks for all kinds of problems with the development of the fetus. Okay, so having said that, here are the things that you're looking for. These are birth defects, teratogenicity, okay, behavioral teratogenicity. Not a lot of research here because you have to do longer-term follow-up. They may look at things like kids being harder to soothe and more irritable, little babies. There are a few studies where they followed up, especially on Prozac exposed babies, out to about 7 years to see if they had any higher incidence of behavioral problems. Okay, fetal side effects, and this can be a big deal. For instance, if you have a drug that somehow lowers heart rate, for instance, in the mother, guess what? It's going to lower it in the fetus too. Okay, fetal withdrawal. What if you're taking tranquilizers? Now, tranquilizers are notorious. If you take those for a long period of time and you do abrupt discontinuation, you can have very bad withdrawal effects, including death. The worst offender is Xanax. If you're taking a moderate to high dose and abruptly discontinue, people have gone into grand mal seizures and sometimes died from that. And anytime the fetus is exposed to anything, lithium or whatever, the moment they're born, guess what? They are discontinued cold turkey. Okay, so you can have fetal withdrawal problems. Let me mention one more thing, and that is just an example of how the system is flawed, FDA, and then we'll come back talk about specifics later. You ask any obstetrician in the country, and you ask probably 95% of psychiatrists, is lithium safe during pregnancy? And they will say no. The FDA says no because it showed in a study in 1974 that there was a significantly higher risk of developing a rare cardiac defect called Epstein's anomaly. It earned lithium a D rating. Okay, let's go back here for a minute. D is what? Okay, D and X you probably shouldn't use. Since then, there have been several studies. It's never been replicated. Never. But the FDA does not go back. It always errs on the side of caution. Let me give you one more study. Wellbutrin, one of the only antidepressants to continue to have a B rating. It had a B rating until a year and a half ago. And there was an animal study where they gave the equivalent of practically overdoses to pregnant, rabbits. Did I say rats or rabbits? Anyway, rabbits. They were getting huge amounts of Wellbutrin during pregnancy, and what they found is their babies had a thinning of the bone in the pelvis. They submitted that to FDA, and they downgraded Wellbutrin to a C. Okay? I want you to get the sense of this. It's a reflection of several things. One is very understandable, and that is great caution about our young people. Okay? I think that's well placed. It's also cover your butt, FDA, because there's been a number of drugs that have been degraded supposedly because it was more politically correct to do that than it's supported by the data. Okay, so we'll come back to some specifics later.